Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here. We are talking some music again this week. The man, you put him in your top four for the 2020s.
I did.
I did not. I stand by it. But he's good.
Right.
Interested to hear where he would go with this project. It's Cordae with the new album Crossroads just came out. It's been what two years since he came out with for a bird's
Yeah.
eye view. He got Grammy nominated for his first album,
Yeah.
The Lost Boy, which is pretty crazy to do. Super interesting album, one I really liked a lot from a bird's eye view. I also enjoyed, but certainly not anywhere near as good to me personally. And I think he acknowledged that actually at one point. I think
Yeah.
he like put that out there. But I was really excited to hear where he would go with this one because there's been some cool singles in the meantime. He's had some cool features in the meantime, and so I was really interested to hear where this album was going. But tell us how you feel about Cordae. I mean, obviously we kind of went over that a couple weeks ago, but for those that didn't hear,
Yeah. So the first album that I heard, start to finish, was From a Bird's Eye View, and I thoroughly enjoyed the album. I thought it was a really good album. At the time, I was a little delusional. I will say that, saying that it was his best album.
Yeah.
Then I listened to Lost Boy,
yeah,
and I still would say, for me personally, they sit around the same, but I do have Lost Boy over From a
Okay.
Bird's Eye View.
Okay.
There's just more songs that I do enjoy. I like some of his singles. I like how he came out with the remix of My Name Is, some of his songs with YBN. I love his cadence. I love his flow. I think he's a great storyteller. And I don't know, he just has that something to him that, like, some of my favorite old school hip hop artists have. I can't put a finger on exactly what,
yeah,
but
yeah. He's
Yeah.
he's certainly one of the few true classic style lyricists left in today's hip hop. Even if you look at guys that are great lyricists today, it's not quite the same. I would say it's a different avenue.
Yeah.
If you're looking at like even a JPEG Mafia or Vince Staples, who kind of have their own avenue, a modern style to it. He's one of those guys that does have that classic feel to his music in terms of the style. But let's go in and break this one down, by various aspects here, and starting off with the production. This to me has always been an interesting area of his music because while I feel like his production isn't always like groundbreaking or new, it's always interesting and unique and has a very quote unquote Cordae flavor to it. It's like you listen to it and you're like, you can tell when you're in a Cordae song or when it's Cordae featured on someone else's stuff, which is cool to me. With this project, I do feel like you still get that same flavor. There's interesting, cool moments, but it doesn't really build off of anything that he hasn't already done and done well in the past.
yeah.
It does stick with what's worked for him, which I respect and which I still enjoyed listening to it, but it wasn't like, there were tracks that you could have told me are, off of a deluxe on From a Bird's Eye View or
Yeah.
The Lost Boy, and I would have been like, oh, same style, same sound. But, it does work, so I did give the production a 7 here.
Yeah, I gave it a 7 as well. I was going back and forth. Most of this album is very, very laid back, which I love. I love a laid back instrumental. But there were definitely times, and this kind of goes into vocals, so a little bit later
Yeah.
as well. But there are times when I feel like his voice doesn't really match the instrumental,
Yeah.
or maybe like the mixing like kind of hinders on the instrumental or whatever it may be.
Right.
But I still think it's really good. You still get little flares of hype, like in a couple of the songs,
For sure.
but definitely took a way more mellow stance. So yeah, I ended up with a 7 as well.
Yeah, and going right into what you were talking about with the vocal section there, I do feel like what you're saying is for sure true, where the vocal doesn't really match the vibe of what we're going for in the song, or at least what it feels like that it should be going for.
Yeah.
I'll also say he's not the worst vocalist, but it's certainly not his forte. It's not what he's the best at. And despite that, I feel like he tries to do a lot of melodic stuff at various points. And for some guys it works. Like Kanye is not the greatest vocalist. Not by a long shot. But he has moments where it's melodic and it sounds fantastic.
Right.
And was really one of those pioneers to get music to the point where you have to be able to do some of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, despite him again not having the strongest vocals, it does feel on this album like he tries to use it a lot, and I'll kind of get into that later when we talk specific songs. But there is that aspect on this album. Again, this is probably why I'd say The Lost Boy is my personal favorite, because it has the least of that to me, where it feels like the melodic moments work and aren't over, like he's not trying too hard in those songs.
Yeah.
They're well within his capabilities on that album, and on this one, again, not always, but there are moments where it just doesn't feel like it works. It doesn't really feel like it matches.
Yeah.
So I did give the vocals a 6. I do like the flows. I think the flows are good. I think the energy is good on a lot of the tracks, and all that kind of good stuff. So it's not too bad, but it is a 6.
Yeah. So once again, agreed. Gave it a 6. And so on top of what I was saying with it doesn't really match the instrumentals all the time, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I give props because he tries,
Right.
and that's him trying to step out of his realm, because you can tell that he doesn't have much experience in that. Like, it's still pretty new to him, so I can respect that. And I don't think he did bad on all of them, because like you said, there are a lot of melodic standpoints throughout this album that he's trying to hit, and I think there's a couple where definitely tries a little too hard, and you could have went a whole different route. Maybe grab another feature. Maybe honestly just find your range, because he's trying to hit these higher octaves, and he's trying to match the beat, but that's not his range. So I think if he finds his range and just harnesses that, like, I think later on, if he wants to do that, should be perfectly fine. But there's a couple songs where he does do those melodic little harmonies, underlining what are they called? Vocal tracks and ad-libs and whatever it may be. He does do it pretty well, but because there's a little bit of try hard in there.
Yeah.
Bring it down.
I agree with that 100%, because there's for sure something to be said for just sticking within your vocal range. Like, not everybody is The Weeknd or Adele and just able, or even Anderson .Paak, to do just crazy whatever vocal stuff. Even like Young Thug has some crazy range abilities. But the track that really initially comes to my mind is Thanksgiving off of The Lost Boy. And that's a very melodic track, but it's very mellow and very non-crazy vocally. The melodic range that he's going to is well within his abilities, and it just makes it a great vibe. It makes it sound good. It pulls everything that he's doing lyrically together on the track. So I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
And moving into more of that lyrical territory, this obviously is what he's good at. And I will say, I think my main problem with From a Bird's Eye View is Cordae and a few other artists who I don't really need to focus too much on in this episode, but there's a few of them, have a tendency for me, at least in my eyes, to at times essentially come across as just, this is good hip-hop because it's lyrical hip-hop, and kind of rely on this crutch of, I'm not a mumble rapper, without actually doing anything all that interesting lyrically.
Yeah.
And like I said, he's not alone in this. There's for sure other guys like that, and other guys that are very successful like that, where it's kind of like, oh, I'm the top tier of hip hop right now. When really what they're just saying is I'm not a mumble rapper.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I don't need you to be a mumble rapper or a lyricist. I think there's room for all kinds of music and all kinds of deliveries in hip hop. But I kind of do take a little bit of issue when it's like, I'm the top tier because I'm a lyricist. When it's like, you're really not doing anything that like you're just, all I can hear is like your words. That's really what you're saying is you can hear what I'm saying. This album, I will say, he does improve on that area for me. I was concerned with it coming in based on a couple of the singles. But again, he's a guy that has shown, in addition to what I just said, that he is capable of being a very good lyricist. And on this one, I don't feel like too often he leans on that crutch of just saying he's not a mumble rapper.
Yeah.
But he actually does something pretty interesting lyrically. It's good. It's honest. There's funny moments. There's intelligent moments on it. It is prone to the occasional cheesy bar. On the track with Kanye, I think it's on the track with Kanye. He says, "Me and your mama are tight like Skims," and that's, one, I didn't need that image. Two, it's a little cheesy, and there's a few of those. That one's the most glaring in my recent memory. But overall, I don't take a whole lot of issue with a lot of the lyrics. But I will say it is also hard in this year specifically, when your lyrical competition has been more fierce than it's been probably in the last 5 years in my mind. When you've got Kendrick doing what Kendrick did all year, in his various moments, and then you've got albums from the likes of Vince Staples and Benny the Butcher, and Eminem had great lyrical performance. The list. J. Cole has great lyrical moments on the air. The list can go on and on for people. Even JPEG Mafia, I mentioned him earlier. Tyler the Creator. I'm just getting a flood of artists right now that I'm like, wow, crazy lyrical year when we haven't had this for 5+ years.
Right.
With that being said, it is hard to drop a lyrical album in this year where it's like, holy crap, crazy, better than what everyone else is doing.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean this one's bad, but it does put something like, for a bird's eye view in perspective again for me, where it's like, if you put that album in this year when it's not as good as this one lyrically, like, whoa. But anyways, I'll digress. It's solid lyrically. I do really like a lot of it. I did give it a 7 on that front.
Man, we're lining up pretty well. So I also gave it a 7. I think my biggest gripe with this album is he says and talks about the same thing a lot throughout the album. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to hate or nothing, but like, he talks about his daughter.
Sure.
Awesome. Hats off to you. You're stoked. You're happy about it. That's great.
You should be, yeah.
But at the same time, that's just a situation that you're mentioning a lot. Yeah. Like, do you not have anything else going on? Like, it's a 48-minute project. There's 16, 17 tracks. And I'm hearing a lot of the same things. And the daughter is just one thing that is like that I can think of off the top of my mind.
Yeah, but no, you're still getting
there were other things that like
right.
Yeah, like I don't know, switch it up a little bit. Like so that was my biggest thing on it. But I think what helped keep it from being any lower is the storytelling aspect.
For sure.
Which he's one of the best in today's hip hop that I feel like can paint a really good, vivid story in your mind.
Yeah.
Get all of these different imagery and whatnot. And so that really helped him out. But
yeah, as you're bringing that up, I'm laughing a little bit because it makes me think of something that we talked about earlier this year.
Oh, no.
That I think holds true for this album and far too many albums also. like I'll say that. I love Post Malone's last project. Just personally, it's one that I have a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
But this one's prone to it. There's, Tyler the Creator's album's prone to it. Nobody did it worse than G-Eazy this year. Where you just put something that heartfelt and that like emotional and innocent in your album. Like, on this one, it's Cordae's daughter. On G-Eazy's album Freak Show, it's his mom.
Yeah.
And then the next track, it's like the things you're saying about women and just other people in general. Yeah. It's like that's a different vibe altogether. So I do take. I will just say, that's something that's on my mind when I think of the storytelling in this one and the subject matter. You're like, okay, we got Ty Dolla $ign talking about what he's talking about, and then the next track, Cordae's rapping about how good of a father he wants to be, and you're like, okay, all right, I guess that's the direction.
We need to stop.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, he's not alone in that. There's way too many albums that are like that, and just in history in general, albums are like that.
I forgot G-Eazy dropped this year.
Yeah.
That was such a bad album. It was so awful.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
G-Eazy catching strays for no reason.
Okay.
Oh, my gosh.
Moving on. Continuing to talk kind of about the storyline, the subject matter here, getting into the concept of this one. Again, not really what I'd consider a full concept album by any stretch, but definitely an interesting theme when we're looking at how much Cordae's life's changed, talking about how different everything is, and talking about yet how he's still the same guy, and reflecting on his upbringing and how that's shaped him into the guy that he is now, despite everything being so different, pulling together that title of Crossroads and just how things are crossing like that, and how stark the differences might be. For me, you kind of touched on this. It's a cool concept. It's a cool idea. I do like a lot of the storytelling on it. But it also doesn't really develop all that anywhere interesting. You kind of get the point by the third song. You're like, Cordae's rich. He's got a famous girlfriend. Yep. He's got a daughter now.
Yep. He used to be broke.
And that all those hardships have kind of shaped him into who he is today. Yep. And the fame and the money isn't changing him because that's not what he values. Right. And then you get about 12 more tracks of it. Yep. So still cool. Again, I do like the idea of it. It just doesn't really go anywhere all that interesting for me in the end. So I did give it a 6.
Dude, are we gonna have the same rating for the first time ever?
That might be crazy.
Yeah, because I also gave it a 6. Kind of the same reason with lyrics. Yeah. You talk too much about the same things, and like that's cool. You're trying to just say it in different ways. But you're rich and famous, dude. Your life is probably wild. Let's start talking about some other things. Like, on top of that, we've also had so many albums this year with their hardships and like their struggles. Granted, this isn't the exact same, but it still touches on some similarities. And like, that's not his fault. No, but it's like the MCU in the multiverse. I'm over it. Yeah. Let's get back to the hyped albums. I want to jam out and have a good time. But I mean, it wasn't like terrible. But I'm just a little over it, so I gave it a 6.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It is interesting, but like you said, we've heard it, and realistically, we've heard it from him. I do feel like that's not an uncommon theme for a Cordae album. But going into the feature territory here, this is another area where I'll kind of echo what I just barely said. It is a pretty predictable, formulaic territory for Cordae. Anderson .Paak, Lil Wayne, artists that he's worked with a plethora of times. There, that's not to say there isn't new moments on there. There isn't people that you're interested to hear from. But it is a little bit like, okay, it's a Cordae album. I know I'm going to get these guys on here. Yeah. But overall, I will say very solid performances on most artists' part. Yeah. There's not a whole lot where I was like, okay, what is so-and-so doing on here? Yeah. 2 Wayne features I don't take too much issue with. Same with Anderson .Paak, but it was like, okay, we've heard you do like 10 songs together in the past. Now we got
Yep.
2 more here. So room for, somebody else, maybe, but overall not bad at all.
Yeah.
They do provide a good aspect, a good change of pace to the album.
Yeah.
So I gave the features an 8.
Oh, and we finally switch it up.
Okay.
So I was a lot more harsh on this. I gave it a 6. I guess that's not really a lot more. I'm disappointed in how he took to the features.
Okay.
And kind of like the same thing. Like, I just wish we got different people. Because, granted, I love Cordae's and Anderson .Paak's friendship and relationship.
Sure, yeah.
I think they make really good music together, and I'm hoping that we get a little EP project, kind of like how Bruno did with Anderson.
Yeah.
I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But that song with Anderson, not very good. Like, it's cool, but
which one?
the not 210s. I don't count 210s just because I heard that as a single last year.
Sure.
I didn't think it was all that good.
Okay.
And maybe that's because I just think they've done way better.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of felt like a digress.
Yeah.
So I wasn't super impressed with that. I wish that there was only one Wayne feature instead of 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did way better on the first one than the second one.
Yeah.
It's cool that you got Kanye. Hate me if you will. I don't even think that was that much of a great song. It sounded a little whack.
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
It seemed
sure.
even like the mixing was all weird. Yeah, that one threw me off. Juicy J, like, cool, good choice, but also I could have lived without. I'm like 50-50. You didn't do bad, but whatever. I think the best feature was Ty Dolla $ign.
Agreed.
And then those other 2 artists, the 2 that I have no idea.
Jordan Ward and I forget the other vocalist.
They did. I was pretty pleased with what they did. It was different.
I like Joey Bade too.
Joey Bade was pretty good. So like those are a couple names that I'm glad that you got them, but I know that you got connections with people now.
Sure.
Like you could have chose a lot more diversity with artists that would have really complemented your vocal style and your cadence and all these different things. So I'm just disappointed that we got safe, like really safe.
Yeah.
Because some of the other artists we've talked about, like, they can get away with it because of certain, like, whatever. But this is one where I'm like,
didn't get away with it.
Yeah, you could have done so much better with it.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 6. I was a little disappointed.
No, I can't disagree with too much of that. There is one area where I think you're a little off your rocker. But I'll save that because we're getting there. But to round this thing out and talk about the replay value on this one, it's solid, but I mentioned this earlier. It's overshadowed by better works lately and better works from even him, in my opinion. There's better singles from him. There's better features from him. There's better albums, at least to me. It is an improvement on From a Bird's Eye View in my eyes. I do like it a bit better than that one. But it's not quite to the tier that I hold The Lost Boy.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, just in this year when you have so many great lyrical projects doing so many interesting things, to come out with one that's I like the way you describe the features, and I'll broaden that to the whole album, to drop a pretty safe lyrical album without anything too daring on any category, really.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that in a year that's so stacked. And like, again, part of that's unfair, but part of that's just music too, and recency bias is real. And so, like maybe if Cordae drops this in 2022 when you don't have as much lyrical competition, maybe I hold it to a higher regard.
Right.
But, in the grand scheme, I don't really think that it's going to be like, wow, great, crazy lyrical album, where I do feel like The Lost Boy to some extent is one of those that's like, in the last era, it is one of those really interesting different projects.
Yeah.
It does get him back on track a little bit for a bird's eye view. Even though I do think that one's decent. But yeah, overall it came out to a 6.8 for me, which is about how I feel.
What was your overall enjoyment rating?
The enjoyment
the
replay value was 7 for me.
So I ended up giving that one a 6 as well.
Yeah.
We've already touched on it. It's just a super safe album, and this is definitely one that I was excited about. I really like Cordae as an artist. I don't think, for me, it doesn't pass from a bird's eye view, but I also really like that one personally.
Yeah.
And it's not like miles away or nothing
Sure.
like that. I think he's pretty close with what he's got going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall I gave the album a 6.5.
Okay. Right in that same range there.
Yeah.
Moving into a few specific songs here, talking about some of the best, worst, and most underrated tracks. This is where I have to call you and say that
Wow.
you are off your rocker. I do have Summer Drop as the best song.
Wow.
I really, really liked Anderson .Paak's performance. I think vocally what he did was super crazy, super interesting, super cool. I watched an interview recently. Doesn't have anything to do with this album other than just like I'll draw a weird comparison.
Yeah.
It was with Post Malone, and he was talking about working with Young Thug, and he said working with Young Thug is crazy because you'll be listening to what he's doing, and in your mind you kind of can't help but think where you would go with a song. And Post Malone says, like, listening to the harmonies that Young Thug does, he listens to it, and he's like, normally I would, like, if I were doing the song, I would go down an octave here, and Young Thug goes up, like, 3 octaves. And stupid story just to say, Anderson .Paak kind of does the same thing, where you're listening, and you're like, holy crap, where's he going with this melody? But it's cool, and I really like that. It is one of the more catchy songs on the album, which... Again, not that a song needs to be catchy for me, but like on an album like this where it is pretty safe, that's one of the draws for me that's going to keep me coming back to it. It is interesting in that regard.
Yeah.
Lyrically, not too crazy, but it does have some good moments, and overall, I just think it's a fun, mellow vibe. So I did like it on that front.
Maybe I was being a little harsh on it because I don't even think it's like a bad song. Like
you just would have been fine with the one feature,
right?
And you're cool with it.
Yeah, and I don't know. There was something about the song that I was like,
Yeah.
But it's not bad. Not a bad song. I just also wouldn't put it as the best song.
Sure.
I did put "Back on the Road" with Lil Wayne as the best song.
Yeah. Solid for sure.
That's where I thought like the chorus was super catchy and fun.
Yeah,
And, like I think Wayne did a really good job too. So it's another little duo that I think work pretty well together. So.
For sure. Going over to the most underrated song. To me, despite the fact that Ty Dolla $ign's lyrical content was a bit outrageous, I did really, really like the sound of Pray and kind of just the various aspects of that one in terms of production and style. I really like that one. I'll agree with you. I think Ty Dolla was the strongest feature. Hearing him was super cool, a super cool change of pace sound-wise on the album, and so I did enjoy that one. But
yeah, I'm just gonna piggyback because that's also my most underrated. I liked his vocal. I love his vocals when he's on. He's on.
Yeah,
and that's one of those times.
Yeah.
So.
For sure. Moving into the least favorite track here on the album. Curious where you went with this one. I feel like you might, think I'm off my rocker for my pick. I went with Nothing's Promised from the earlier portion of the album. And really my main problem with this one is... we talked earlier about how he's not the best vocalist.
Yeah.
And he really, he chooses a sample and a style for the song that you have to be really good melodically on.
Yeah.
Didn't love that aspect of it. And you also have this same song idea in terms of the chorus that's been done really, really well by Kanye West.
Yeah.
Like, iconically by Kanye West. And it's like, one, I don't think anybody can top that. And maybe he's not trying to top it, but still, when you're comparing it to that, it's like, holy crap. And then I will say, if you are going to sample that, it's a hard song to sample, but Logic sampled that on No Pressure and did it really well.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you got two of those. When you're the third guy to do it, you got to come with something. I just feel like he didn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm not going to say you're off your rocker. I won't say that. But I do differ. I chose All Alone.
Okay.
This is a poor man's Rich and Sad by Post Malone. No disrespect, but you're just flexing and saying that you're sad. I get it. You have a really big house and there's nobody in the house to be with you.
Yeah.
Boo-hoo. Wish I had that problem. This is just another one of those songs where I felt like he tried a little too hard melodically. He tried to hit these high notes and keep practicing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that I'm any good at doing that. I couldn't do any better, but
No, yeah.
I'm also not trying it.
Yeah.
So
we also can just like let's set that narrative aside. That like if just because you can't do something doesn't mean that you can't be critical of something.
Right.
Like to some extent I get what people are saying with that, but that's just outrageous. Like I don't need to be good enough to play in the NFL to know a good NFL play versus a bad one. Like
I know good vocals when I hear good vocals. Exactly.
Like, that's an outrageous like claim that people make. So I got your back on that. If anybody says anything,
I genuinely do think that he could get to a point where maybe that is part of his vocal range, but
sure.
Until it's that time, just keep practicing because I do think you could do it. Anyways, All Alone.
Not your favorite.
Yeah, no.
Is he still dating Naomi Osaka? No, is Cordae still dating Naomi Osaka? What? Then why is he even talking about being all alone?
And with like
and his kid
and all these other women.
Yeah.
Cordae.
So the song's cap and it's not that good. So
man,
double whammy.
Double cap.
Okay, that's all.
Man.
Overall, like despite the fact that we ended it on like a really harsh note on the album, I did enjoy it. It's not bad. It's not bad.
It just
not my favorite.
It won't make top 10.
Sure, easily.
Yeah. No, because once I put the rating in, because I thought I liked this more than Tyler's album, which I think I do. But also, then I saw the rating, I was like, ooh, that's really close. Because I didn't.
It happens that way sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes I'd be shocking myself.
Yeah. You're going to have to redo the math on that Eminem album, but...
Yeah,
I do. Until next time, we will catch you later.
Adios.